Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to present to you Manuel Pimenta. He is a gamification designer from Novabase. I had the pleasure to watch his presentation at Pixel Camp, which was great, and he's going to present you a similar experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Gamification is very important. It's very important also, and especially for you, which are that are students of game programming and game development, and also because we are planning a large event in the next year, which involves gamification. Okay, and I will then talk to Manuel about that because we would love to have him with us. Okay. So now, without further ado, Manuel Pimenta.
Okay, hi everyone. First of all, sorry for the delay. Traffic by the river was awesome as usual. So I'm going to talk to you about gamification. So first of all, this is me. I've been doing gamification since 2012. I was lucky enough to take some courses, have some certifications, do some workshops with some of the top gurus, which was awesome. And recently, I've become the representative of the Gamification World Network in Portugal. So we've hosted our first meetup during Web Summit. And our second meetup is due to happen 15th December in Braço de Prata. So if you're interested, you're welcome to come. Okay. So our goals for the next 45 minutes or so. I'm going to try to explain to you what is gamification, why should you care about it, why is it important, and also how could you go about doing gamification, okay? Of course, in order to talk to you about gamification, I'm going to have to talk to you about the power of games, because gamification only exists because games exist. So in case you don't recognize this, this is an arena. I don't know exactly where it is, but it's about the size of Mel Arena. And it's full of people watching other people play, okay? There are a couple of guys. Actually, there are about 2 teams, 5 guys each. And they're playing each other, and they're playing an online game. And all of these people are watching and cheering. So it's basically a concert, you know, the same amount of people, but with video games, okay? So for me, video games started with this. Tetris was the first one I played. I owe it all to my grandfather because he had a PC with Tetris installed. And I spent a lot of hours playing it. And suddenly I discovered that this one was installed too. This one is called F15 Strike Eagle. And after Tetris, this one was pretty different. So different objectives. I had to kill all of those ships. That's a ship, in case you don't recognize it. And then this was the first one I played in my home PC. It's called Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis. And for me, this was particularly important because it was really great to discover this screenshot because I distinctly remember being a small kid and being stuck in this part of the game for hours. And when I say hours and days, okay? I had no idea how to get past this. And so when I discovered, okay, this was awesome. And this really, what it meant to me is that games have that power to capture me time enough for me. I was just stuck on this scene for hours, okay? So it's really powerful that a game can convince me to spend as much time just on a particular part of the game. And then came this, okay? I don't know if all of you know this. This is called Football Manager. Actually, this one was called Championship Manager because it was the previous edition. And it was the first time that I realized that games weren't just personal for me, okay? Because with Football Manager, I played it by myself. And then when I got to school, I talked about it with my friends. And I discovered, okay, we're going to exchange tactics. We're going to trade some of the players we discovered. And this was the first time that I realized that I could take games out of my alone time and take it into everyday life, okay? So that was the path for me. I got pretty much stuck on Football Manager. I still played loads of hours. But with the rest of humanity, video games started with this. Okay, I'm sure all of you know that. All of you know this game, right? Okay, just to check. So this is called Pong. Pretty basic game. In the 1970s, you gotta score goals, and the player with the biggest score wins. Pretty basic. So quickly, the gaming community, which it didn't have that many people, okay, but even so, they started to demand more from games, and so game designers started to give them this. Okay, this is called PacMan, and as you can see, it's an evolution of the previous one. So you've got different characters, you've got bonuses, you've got points, you've got high scores. So a different iteration, and we were pretty satisfied for a while, and then we wanted to develop more. Particularly, we wanted a story, because PacMan didn't have that much of a story. So this guy is running away from ghosts. When he catches that ball, he's starting to catch the ghosts. So that's the storyline. And that's the time when story-focused games started to come up. Games like Legend of Zelda, where you're Lynx and you've got to save the princess and you've got to kill the bad guy. So now games started to have a story. They started to become narratives with a visual component. And still, we wanted more. And since we wanted more, game designers gave us World of Warcraft. So this is, Zelda is from the 1980s. This one was created in 2004. And this is a scene from a particular raid where there are a bunch of guys, 20 people, playing against a big bad boss and his minions. And that team of 20 people is being coordinated by someone who's checking all the stats, checking the stats from the bad guys, checking all of his stats, and with a headset, he's coordinating the entire team. And the chances that he might be just 15 years old are pretty high. So these guys are coordinating teams since they're 15 years old, okay? And the surprising thing is, someone did a count from 2004 to 2012, how many hours all of the World of Warcraft players, if they were combined, how many hours, total amount of hours were played. And they discovered that it was about 6 million years, okay? So there's, back in 2012, so we're in 2016 right now, so it must be a bit higher. So back in 2012, the total amount of hours played by World of Warcraft players were 6 million years. 6 million years ago, the human race was starting to decide that maybe it would be nice to like walk upright and use your hands and stuff like that. Okay, that's really a really great amount of hours. Also, they discovered that humans invest 3 billion hours a week playing games. So there's a lot of time where the whole human race, or most of the human race, is playing video games. And not just World of Warcraft games like Farmville and casual games, Candy Crush, stuff like that, okay? And what this made, what this created is that the stereotype of the gamer is no longer this. Okay, there's bound to be some hardcore gamers that look like this, okay? But it's not just like this anymore, okay? Nowadays, gamers look like this. Maybe not that pretty, but they're pretty much regular guys and girls. And when you get to the numbers, you find out that 1.4 billion people play at least 1 hour a day, okay? And when I say 1 hour a day, is that time when you get your cell phone out and play some Candy Crush. 1.4 billion people play at least an hour. In the US, there's 5 million people that play at least 40 hours a week, okay? And that's the same as a job. And they're not getting paid for it, okay? 5 million people. 2 out of 5 are women, okay? So it's no longer a boys' club. And women not only play the casual games, they're starting to play the really hardcore games. There are a bunch of hardcore players. There are women right now. They're really good because they're better at multitasking. So And the average gamer age is not 17, it's not 18, it's 35, okay? The average gamer is 35 years old, okay? So that's about the average age of the workforce, okay? So people that are working in companies, consulting firms, software development companies, the average age is about 35, so they're bound to be gamers. And the big question is why? Why are all of these people playing so many hours, spending so many hours of their day in online worlds, in virtual worlds, forgetting about their everyday activities, just spending these hours playing? And the answer is simple. It's because reality as a game is pretty poorly designed, okay? And those 35 years old, people like me, I'm not 35, but I'm going there, they grew up playing these games. And when they get to college and when they get to work, when they start working, they start to discover that reality that they knew from games, that instant gratification, that sense of epic win, that feeling I'm powerful, I can beat the odds, I can work with my friends, and I can conquer everything. They're not getting that in everyday life. When they get to school, they only find out their grades at the end of the semester. When they get to work, they only know how well they behave and what are they going to earn one time a year. This is inconceivable for someone that grew up with games. Only getting feedback once a year, it's pretty weird. And so people are starting to decide, okay, maybe reality is not that fun, but games are fun, so I'm going back to games. And why? Because games create sensations like this. Okay, this is the face of something that Jane McGonigal, which is a pretty well-known game designer, something that she calls the face of an epic win, okay? So this is a win so unsurmountable, because he's not only happy, he's a bit surprised too. So he's not even comprehending how much of a win or how much of an epic win that is, okay? And that's what gamification designers are trying to do, to try to bring that face into everyday life, okay? So, you found out the power of games, and I want to tell you a bit about how games make us grow, because it's not just about fun, it's also about what we can learn from games. And for me, this game is called Star Control 2. It's pretty underground, but for me, this was my first English teacher, okay? Because the game was, it was a sci-fi game, and we were going across all the planets and trying to speak with all the aliens. And it was pretty much dialogue-based. So in order to play the game, you had to understand what they were saying. So for me, I was learning English from Cartoon Network, okay? So this was a step up. And I wanted to understand what they were saying, so I pretty much grabbed my mother. What are they saying? What are they saying? What's the alien saying? Okay, go away. No, come back. What is he saying now? Okay, and that's how I learned English. And this is how I learned geography, okay? This one was called Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? And you were part of a team that was chasing after an international thief called Carmen Sandiego. And you had to discover where was she. So you had these pictures and you had this information and you had to discover, okay, this is the Kremlin, so she must be in Moscow. So with this game, I started to connect the monuments and the information with the places. And for me, it was, I was pretty advanced in geography when I started school compared to my colleagues because of this game. And nowadays, I don't play this, but I found out that my Cub Scouts do. All of them play this. It's called Minecraft, of course. And a lot of schools have started to use Minecraft as a tool to teach spatial reasoning, okay? Because you've got to construct all these buildings, and you need to understand how the cubes overlap and how you can position them. So this has become a really important tool to teach spatial reasoning. And some schools in Portugal have started to use this too. And of course, for me, this was the first time that I realized that games can be really powerful. These are my Cub Scouts. I teach them every Saturday. I teach them about a lot of stuff. And I don't teach them in a lecture mode. I teach them with games. Okay? So we play games, they learn, they grow, and they grow into being developed kids. And when I became a Cub Scout leader, I realized, okay, this is really powerful. It's not just about video games. You can use it in everyday life. And you can really change behaviors and make people grow, okay? And why do games make us grow? 5 things, okay? Games make us think creatively, okay? We want to, we're facing different challenges, we're overcoming obstacles, and sometimes we have to think how we're going to do it, and we have to think in a creative way. They make us seek novelty, not only because there's always a new game coming up, but also because a game will only keep us playing if it's constantly showing us something new. Also, they make us challenge ourselves, okay? It's not always easy to play a game. If you're a gamer, you're playing because of the challenge, okay? And the harder the challenge is, the most pleasing it is for us, okay? Also, and this one, sometimes my parents disagree, but games make us socialize, okay? Particularly online games. Okay? I've got a lot of friends back from college that met some of their best friends online. I've got a friend that met his girlfriend online playing World of Warcraft. Okay, nowadays is Tinder, back then was World of Warcraft. Okay? And finally, they make us do things the hard way. Okay? If there's a boss and we have to kill the boss, there might be some cheats, but most of the gamers will have to face it the hard way. So they teach us all of this, and there was a psychologist called Andrea Kuchevsky, and she investigates the research that she does is around IQ, okay, and how kids can develop their IQ. IQ is not a standard measure that you're stuck like that all of your life. And what she discovered was that these 5 things were the 5 things that could make you increase your fluid intelligence. And your fluid intelligence is your capability to solve problems and to solve new problems. So what she found out is that games basically make you smarter, okay? And they make you more capable of dealing with different challenges, okay? So, you found out about the power of games, how games can make you grow, and now I need you, okay, normally this is a pretty important part. With you, it's not, I suspect that most of you are game designers or you want to be game designers. But I really need for you to get into the game designer mindset. So, first of all, what is a game? Okay? A game, and you must know this, a game is a series of objectives, set of predefined rules, and a voluntary following of the rules. This is a pretty important part. Games are not mandatory, games are voluntary, okay? And this happens a lot with some of my clients when they ask for a gamification solution, and I'm trying to discover what type of employees they have or what type of clients will the solution have. And oh, don't worry about that, I'm going to force them to use it. And I always come back to this, no, it's got to be voluntary. Because if it's not voluntary, it's not useful. It's not going to do the work. Another definition of what is a game is something called the magic circle, as defined by Johann Huizinga. He's a 19th century philosopher. And he defines a game as something that happens within this magic circle. So there's a magic circle, outside there's a real world. Inside the magic circle, there are choices, there are rules, you get feedback, there are different paths, okay? All of this happens within the game. An example of that is this. This is a football field, okay? Inside the football field, it's not a circle, it's a rectangle, but the metaphor is there. Inside the football field, if you tell someone to score a goal, if you were outside, someone told you, oh, you need to take that ball and put it in the net. You take the ball, run, put it in the net. You need to stop that guy from putting the ball in the net. You punch him in the face, okay? But inside that magic circle, there are a set of rules that you've got to respect. There's the offside, there you've got to pass. You can only use your foot or your chest or your knees or your head. And you score a goal by putting it into the net. You've got 90 minutes. All of these rules are valid, and they make the game the experience that it is. And so, I had a quick exercise for you. I don't know if you have something to write on. Do you have something to write on? Just a quick exercise just to get you into the mindset. Okay. So, do you know this game? Does everybody know this game? I hope so. Unless you've been living in a cave. Okay. This is Tic Tac Toe. So, just to get some interaction, what are the basic rules of Tic Tac Toe? Can someone tell me? How many players are there? 2 players. So, what's the goal of the game? 3 in a row. Okay. And the game space. What is the game space? A 3x3 grid. Okay. So those are pretty much the rules. There's a 3x3 grid. Players have 2 different pieces. Have to make 3 in a row. If no one can play anymore, it's a draw. Okay, pretty simple. So it's so simple that I'm going to ask you to play for a few rounds. So maybe get together with someone next to you and just play a few rounds just to remind yourself what tic-tac-toe is. Okay? I think you can turn around and play with it. Or want to play with him? No? Okay, so has everyone played at least once or twice? Yeah? Okay. So, now that you've remembered how to play, how many of you ended up with draws? Okay, 3 draws, okay. If I'd let you play for some time, most of you would end up just drawing every time, okay? And the question is, why does it always, or almost always, end in a draw? Okay? The answer is pretty simple. It's because you're not kids anymore, okay? If you were kids, there were bound to be less draws. And the thing is that the game is so simple that because you're adults, for you, it's pretty simple to handle the rules and at least not lose. Oh, and by the way, if someone ever tells you that they've got this perfect strategy to win every time at tic-tac-toe, it's not possible, okay? So it's been proven it's not possible. There's no perfect strategy, okay? So the challenge is, how could it be better, okay? An example would be something that we use with Cub Scouts. We call it the Tic Tac Toe Relay. Okay, you know what a relay is? You've got 2 teams, and someone runs to the end, comes back, tags the next one runs, comes back. Okay, so we do that with a huge tic-tac-toe game board on the floor, and each team has 3 T-shirts of a different color. And when they run, they put the piece, and then they come back, the next one goes. And if by the end of the 3 players there's a draw, the next one can go and switch a piece from the place where it was. So what this creates is that now the game of tic-tac-toe has a variable called speed, has a variable called strategy, and speed and strategy sometimes they connect because it's not always better to go faster because the one that goes after can just stay behind, see where the other one changes, and then change in order to win. Okay, so we took a simple game and introduced different variables, and it suddenly became a wholly different experience. And now, if you try and go to small kids and, oh, let's play tic-tac-toe, and they're going to be, seriously? And when I tell them, we're going to play tic-tac-toe relay, they go nuts, okay? Because they love to run, they love the strategy, and they love beating the heck out of the other guys that don't play as good. Cool. Okay, so now I want to challenge you to quickly change the rules of tic-tac-toe, okay? Get together with the other person that you were playing with and introduce 1 or 2 rules, remove 1 or 2 rules, something that makes the game better for you, okay? Just, you can increase it, you can add another player, you can add a row or a column, do whatever you like. It's quick, so it's not supposed to become the perfect game now, okay? Oh, and when you add the rules, you need to play it in order to test it, okay? Okay, so I hope you were able to play at least once or twice, okay? the goal of this exercise is to go through something that game designers do all the time, which is they draw an hypothesis for a game and they play tests, okay? Pretty simple. So you had this game, you wanted to make it better, you hypothesized that there was a different rule that you could add to make it better, you tested it, and I could hear someone saying, I didn't realize that, okay? So this is the normal results of playtesting. And the next steps would be you would incorporate that feedback that you were getting from playtesting and you would do it again. And you'd do it again until you got the game that you were looking for. This is an exercise from a guy called Eric Zimmerman. He's a game designer, he's a teacher of game design. And when he uses this example, one thing that he always says is that the most interesting solution that his students created was one that was the simplest. Okay, so the only rule that they changed was the end game condition. So instead of trying to achieve 3 in a row, the goal was to make the other player achieve 3 in a row. So you had to force the other player to put 3 pieces in a row. So different strategy completely, okay? And this completely changes the game, and it's just a single rule, okay? Okay, now you're in a game designer mindset, and we're going to jump from games. So at some point, someone realized that all of this power could be used for something else. And things like this started to crop up. This is called Foldit, and it's a 3D platform to simulate the structures of proteins, okay? So apparently, proteins look like this in 3D, okay? And this was created by a research institute and a game design company. And what they were trying to create was a platform that everyone could use to simulate the structures, and it would test if the structures were sound, and you would discover the structures of proteins. And this apparently was important in order to find out hints to solve and to fight viruses, okay? So one of the first challenges was the Mason-Pleitzer virus, which is the HIV virus in monkeys. And the scientists were trying to solve this problem for 15 years, okay? They were trying to find out the structure of the protein that was used in the HIV virus in monkeys for 15 years. And they exposed the problem to society, to all the different gamers that were not scientists. They were people like us, random people, and they solved it in 10 days, okay? You went from 15 years to 10 days. Why? Because you introduced a fun way to solve the problem. And suddenly, everybody was trying to solve the problem. Thousands of people trying to solve the problem at the same time. Okay? Another curious blurred line, which is not a game, but it's something different, it's called the WallWiki. And this is the Wikipedia from World of Warcraft. And it's the second biggest Wikipedia in the world, okay? The second biggest. You've got Wikipedia, and then there's WallWiki, okay? So all of those players, they are playing more than 40 hours a week. After that, so they work, they play 40 hours a week, and then they write about it. So this is no longer the game. It goes beyond the game. And this is something that surprised a lot of researchers for a lot of time. And this is one of the hints that games could go beyond the normal game dimension. And so at some point they decided, okay, we need to give a name to this. And they named it gamification. And what it is basically using concepts from games in non-gaming contexts in order to solve real-world problems, okay? In order to solve problems, basically. You learn from games and use it outside of games to solve everyday problems, okay? What this entails is that you need human-centric design, of course. When you're trying to design a game, you design it for the players, so you need to focus on humans. You use game mechanics and game design techniques, and finally, you use some awesome behavioral science. And that's where it gets different from games, okay? Because in games, you're trying to hook the gamer, but you're not necessarily trying to change their behavior, okay? And with gamification, you're trying to change behaviors. You're trying to convince people to do something that they weren't going to do without this incentive, okay? And for me, particularly, the end game is not only the business objectives, because that's another thing with gamification. The first thing that I ask when someone says, oh, I need to gamify this, and it's pretty common to, I need to gamify it. Why? I don't know, I need to gamify it because it's fun. And the first thing I ask is, well, what are the business objectives? And that's always a stage where people go like, well, I don't know that. Let's discover, okay? But for me, the end game is this. For me, the great power that gamification has is that it can use games to create these 4 sensations, emotions, okay? Games give us a sense of relatedness when we're playing with other people, when we're playing the same game that others have played before. Games give us autonomy, okay? We can choose, we make decisions in a game. We create our characters, we choose what they're going to do, if they're going to be dark side or light side. We always make decisions in games. We achieve mastery, okay? In case you don't know, there's a guy called Malcolm Gladwell, and he says that if you work at something for more than 10,000 hours, you become an expert, you become a master. So remember all these hours that those guys were playing, they're masters at something. We don't know yet what exactly, but they're masters. And finally, games give us a sense of purpose, okay? They give us a mission. We're supposed to kill the bad guy. We're supposed to save the princess. There's always a princess to save. I don't know why. But we're supposed to do this, and they give us this mission. And so, personally, as a gamification designer, for me, what I want to bring into everyday life is these 4 things, okay? An example of gamification, so you can imagine what the power is. So this is called Speed Camera Lottery, and this was created as a result of a challenge created by Volkswagen, and they challenged everybody to solve everyday problems in a fun way. That's about it. That's the statement of the problem was solve everyday problems in a fun way. So this guy, what the problem was that in certain areas of Stockholm, the average speed was pretty high, okay? And it's dangerous, okay? Living in Lisbon, we know that, but apparently for them it was a problem. For us, it's a challenge. For them, it was a problem. Okay, so what this guy created was a special speed radar. When you overcame the speed limits, you got fined, okay? There was this picture of your license plate and you got fined. But when you kept with the speed limits, the radar also took a picture of your license plate, and then you received a letter at home telling you that congratulations, oh my God, you're awesome, and you're automatically enrolled in a lottery to win the money of the guys that are paying the fines, okay? So guys pay fines, it goes into a big bag, and you can win the lottery just because you keep with the speed limits. And what this did was that it lowered the average speed in 20%, okay? Just over the course of a few weeks, a couple of months, okay? Just a simple radar and a simple lottery. And it's fun because you got the letter and said, oh my God, you're awesome, and congratulations, and it had a lot of lights and it blinked and so forth. But the thing with gamification, and that's why it's become such a big deal, is that it's not just fun, it's profitable, okay? So the guys from Air Canada, they created a miles program. So we've got the normal miles programs with a lot of air companies, but they really tweaked the program and then created all these fun badges and all these fun missions to achieve. And in their first year, they achieved a 560% return on investment. So this is basically an increase in $26 million in revenue. Canadian dollars, but dollars nonetheless, okay? So in the second year, when everyone, oh no, it's not possible, 500% of return on investment. And every year, they tweak the platform, they increase, just like if it was a game. So if you play World of Warcraft, there are always new patches, new releases coming up. They did the same with this. And in their third year, almost 900% of return on investment. This is huge, okay? And when people started to realize this, gamification started to get a different attention because money matters, okay? Okay, so now the question is, how do they do this? Okay, how do we game designers work? We did this at Pixels Camp. I'm going to use a Murloc to help me. If you don't play World of Warcraft, this guy is always there. And you get to kill a lot of these guys, okay? And it's pretty annoying, so I thought it was fun to add. So, Zombies Run. This is another example of gamification. This is a running app. And if you don't use running apps, you probably know someone who uses running apps. And they post on Facebook that they ran 2,600 miles. And you're sitting in your couch eating some fries and thinking, you bastard, man. I'm feeling guilty right now. So what they did with Zombies Run is that they created a narrative around the experience of running. So now you're not just running, you are saving humanity. Because zombies attacked, they always attack, I don't know why. But you're part of the ones that survive, and you need to go outside and collect fuel and collect supplies. And every time you go running, you put your headphones, start to run, and the narrator is, oh, you hear the birds, and you've got this mission, you've got to save mankind. Oh, here comes the zombies. And you've got to run from the zombies because you can hear them getting near to you, and it's pretty scary, okay? Because they're not saying brains, but you get the feel that they want to eat your brains. And then suddenly the narrator tells you there's a hedge, and you can hide behind the hedge. But now you've got to look, oh, and hide, and you're doing squats now because you're hiding and looking, hiding and looking. And they just introduced a narrative, okay? And this is a pretty important game mechanic. For me, this is one of the most important game mechanics. And this is something that has been used previously in games like Diablo, okay? If you haven't played Diablo, this guy is called Deckard Cain, and he's the narrator, and you're always listening to Deckard Cain. He's always talking, oh, you've got this mission. He's got this really deep voice, okay? So narrative can really affect how you behave. Another good example is Code on the Road by Uber. They do this in the US, in cities that have more tech jobs, a higher density of tech jobs. And what happens is that when you're riding in your Uber, there's a pop-up in the application that pitches you a challenge. So you've got to hack your way out of this. It's not hacking, it's normal programming or solving an algorithm, but they call it hacking because it's sexier. And you've got a time limit, okay? You've got a time limit to solve this challenge, and they use this to recruit, okay? Because if you solve the challenge under the time limit, afterwards you get an email from Uber saying, oh, we want to interview you because you solved the challenge. You might be a good programmer, okay? So what they did was that they introduced a countdown timer. Because if you didn't have the timer, you wouldn't feel the pressure to solve the exercise, and you wouldn't be considered such a good candidate. And this is something that we know from Mortal Kombat, because if you're facing someone that's as good as you, the countdown timer will be important, okay? Because it's ticking and you're thinking, oh, I've got to just duck and kick, okay? Another good example, Khan Academy, okay? If you're a gamer, you might recognize this structure, okay? In games, it's called a skill tree. And basically, Khan Academy is an online academy. It teaches you things from math to physics to pretty much everything. And every time you learn something, you go further down the skill tree. So basically, what is happening is that you have specific milestones that you're achieving, and you're getting motivated to achieve the next milestone and the next milestone and the next milestone. And this is what happens with skill trees, okay? In Final Fantasy, for example, every time you get enough points, you can learn a new skill and increase your character, okay? This is pretty basic stuff. This one I like it a lot because this one was created at NextJump, and it's the NextJump CEO, he's called Charlie Kim, and NextJump is a software development company, okay? So basically, all of the employees, or most of the employees, are programmers, okay? Keep this in mind. And what Charlie Kim wanted, he believed, because at some point in his life, he became really fit, okay? He was really ripped. And he found out that by getting really fit, he increased his ability to focus on problems and to solve problems. He had enough energy to work longer hours than the others. And so he decided that all of his employees had to work out, and they were developers, okay? So this was a challenge. And so he tried to, he pretty much did the normal game development cycle. He introduced a variable, and he tested it, see if it works, test it again, introduce another, introduce another, introduce another. So he started by offering his employees free memberships, and they started practicing the official Portuguese sport, which is having a gym membership, okay? They didn't go. And so what he did was he installed a gym in the headquarters of NextJump. They started to go a bit more, but it was still not enough because people were working, they were developers, they were really focused, they were working longer hours, and when they got out, I'm not going to work out now. So he started to create teams, and suddenly it was not just you. If you didn't work out, your colleagues wouldn't get the points, and they wouldn't get the benefits, so your colleagues were pulling you to go work out. And then he decided, he found out that if the teams were static, the best teams would always win, the worst teams would always lose. So he created this algorithm that was always mixing up the teams. So by the end of about 3 or 4 years, 80% of all developers were working out at least 2 or 3 times a week, okay? They were all developers again. I need to get this out there because as a developer, I can understand their pain. And he got this mission in mind, and he achieved it with game mechanics, okay? He used leaderboards because the different teams were always competing with each other and were always challenging the others. And since the teams were always switching, the leaderboards were really dynamic, okay? And this is something that we know from BattleNet, okay? If you've played StarCraft, for example, you've got these ladders, these online rankings, and they're always changing, and you're always feeling the motivation to go and play again in order to climb up the ladder, okay? Another great example, I particularly love this one. This is called Carrot Weather, and this is basically telling you the weather, but with an attitude, okay? Because it's really ill-tempered. The app is really foul because, yay, it's partly sunny, skin cancer, okay? This is based on the previous app was called Carrot. This was just called the Carrot app. And it was a to-do list. And if you didn't do the tasks, it would really be nasty. It would black out your screen. It would respond in, it would insult you. If you didn't do that, you're lazy, you're fat. It's really ill-tempered. And they brought this to a normal weather app. So what they did was that they introduced just pure mischief, just being funny. And this is something that a lot of games use. Okay? If this guy in World of Warcraft, he does nothing. He's just funny. Okay? He's just there for you to feel glad that you're killing it because he's really annoying. Okay? And in games like Monkey Island, okay, The Secret of Monkey Island, something like funny dialogues was really important for the game because it's like dialogue-based. The story is it's interesting, but the game is not that really dynamic. So the value of it is in the dialogues. And finally, this one I've used for a while. I haven't used it for some time now. This is called Habitica. And it was called Habit RPG because the focus was handling your everyday tasks like an RPG, okay? So every task suddenly becomes a quest, okay? And you need to do your laundry, okay? And you need to go work out, and you need to eat a vegetable, and this gives you experience points, and you go up the levels, and you earn money, and you buy some equipment, and this guy is really pimped up right now, okay? So he's pretty much doing a lot of things. Level 23, okay? So suddenly, it's not your everyday tasks, they are quests. And you can have teams. This guy has all of these guys, and they have common challenges, and if he's not doing his chores, the other guys will seriously crack down on him so that he does his chores. That guy is level 90, so he's pretty serious about his to-do list, okay? And what it does is that it allows you to create your characters from scratch, okay? Much like an RPG, much like World of Warcraft, okay? You create your character from scratch. And this is one of the really great appeals from World of Warcraft, is that you have all these different races, and in each race, you're a guy or a girl, so a lot of different combinations. For me, it was always a Tauren warrior. I don't know, because the guy's really big, and I really just played it to kill people. But for a lot of people, it was about creating different characters and exploring the different variables. Okay, so all of these examples, all of these different things that gamification can do and different ways that you can use game mechanics to change behaviors. And what happened was that back in 2015, these guys started looking into gamification, okay? And when these guys start to look into anything, suddenly it becomes the next big thing, okay? Gamification came up in about 2010, and it started to go up the hype cycle slowly, but in 2015 it exploded, and suddenly everybody was doing gamification. And particularly for my company, this was the time where I stopped being a normal software developer, and I became a gamification designer, okay, because the need was there. And one thing that I want to leave you with is this thing. What happened when gamification came up, there were these guys, these analysts from a company called Gartner, and they're this big company that's always advising other companies and telling them what to do. And what they said was that by 2015, 80% of all gamification solutions will fail because they are poorly designed. And this is what happens every time there is this big hype, and there looks like there's a really easy solution for every case, and that solution is called points, badges, and there's something missing here that's leaderboards, okay? So what happened in 2015 was that most of the solutions, most of the gamification solutions were just points, badges, and leaderboards. They weren't creating awesome experiences. They weren't using all of the game mechanics. If you've had some lessons in game design, you know that points, badges, and leaderboards are not the only things that exist, okay? There's a lot of things that you can use to create better experiences. And so what started to happen was that there was this hole in the loyalty path. So when people started to use the gamification solutions, they would get really pumped up. Oh, I'm winning points, I'm winning badges, there's the leaderboard, and so what's now? And then they fell out into this chasm, okay? And sometimes what happened was that there was a backlash. So people now felt betrayed. So now instead of the solution making your product better, it made your product better for some time, and now it made the product worse because people felt betrayed. So what they discovered was that you need to do a lot of other stuff in order to create really purposeful solutions. And that's what's been happening in recent get-together, in recent conferences, in recent meetups. All the gurus are asking the industry, please guys, stop doing this and start creating better experiences. And for me, this is probably one of the best experiences that I've had in a game. Okay, this is called Journey. It's a pretty awesome game. And for me, the most awesome thing is that the first thing the game does is not tell you anything. So you get this. You're this guy, there's a mountain out there, and you discover that, okay, I can use the keyboard to run around, I can maybe jump, I can do a somersault. And the fact that you look at the big mountain and you look that there's this big light over there and you think, okay, maybe I should go there because it's the only thing in this freaking desert. So you go towards the light and you start to discover the many abilities that you have, and you start to understand the reason why you're going there. And it doesn't use points. There are no badges. There are no leaderboards. It's just a really, really interesting experience, a really fun experience. And you're learning while you're playing. There's no rule book. There's no cheat. You just need to run and go there, and you're learning while you're playing. So it's really an interesting experience. And for me, it's a really important difference between this and this, okay? And also, what I want to leave you with is that gamification is a really powerful thing, okay? There some of the examples that I didn't show back there were really. There's this example, for example, that's called Recycle Bank. And it's a gamification platform that's trying to get you to recycle. And they use all of these simple mechanics, and they really got thousands of people to start to change their behaviors and start recycling, okay? And even if you just use points, badges, and leaderboards, it could be really addictive. So what I want to say with this is that games are really powerful, and gamification is bringing games into your life. So it's even more powerful. But you need to understand that with this power comes a responsibility to not create bad experiences, not make them do bad stuff, not creating online casinos, for example, and ruining people's lives, okay? So this is something that for the gamification design community is really important, is that you understand that with this power, you need to create good experiences. Okay, so some main takeaways. Always try to create fun experiences, okay? This is the goal. There are a lot of frameworks to create gamification solutions, and most of them, the final step is always don't forget the fun. If you took out all the points and all the rewards, would it still be a fun experience? And that's the main aspect that you need to keep in mind. Don't limit yourself to just points, badges, and leaderboards. And of course, each case is special. Focus on the people. So this is an interesting aspect, because when you create a game, you've got this idea, and you think, I'm going to create this game. And maybe it will be fun. Maybe there are a lot of people who play it, maybe not. If you're a AAA game designing firm, you probably need to understand if the game is going to get people addicted. But you're just trying to represent an idea, like a movie or a work of art. But with gamification, you've got specific objectives. So you really need to understand what different users you are going to face, okay? So if you're creating something for kids, you need for it to be kid-friendly. It's not the same if you were going to design it for adults or for seniors, okay? So you need to understand if they're game developers, if they're laymen, if they don't get technology, if they just use paper, or if they're addicted to smartphones, if they're boomers, if they're millennials. You need to get all of this inside of your head, and then consider that when you're designing the solution. So finally, if you want to, this is the slide that you can photograph, okay? Because there's a lot to read, but it's important just if you want to learn more about it. So there are a lot of online courses about gamification. A lot of them are MOOCs. This one, Coursera, I did the 3 of them, but this one is for me, is the best one because it's 6 weeks long, I think 6 or 8 weeks long, and the teacher is really, really good, okay? So there are some books about it, because gamification is not just game design techniques. You need to understand motivation. You need to understand behavioral science. So there are a lot of things that you need to understand. And for me, that one, Reality is Broken, from Jane McGonigal, was the most important in order to get the mission. Because for her, she's not a gamification designer, she's a game designer. And for her, games change the world. Games change people, games change behaviors. And so she has this mission that she's going to change the world by designing games, okay? So for me, this was really important because, oh, I have that mission too. So it was important to see that it was out there. Also, there's this Facebook group called the Gamification Hub. All the gurus hang out there. You can really talk with them and share experience and ask for advice. They're really open. That's one of the great things about gamification is that the community is really tight and people talk to each other. And also, there's the second Gamification World Meetups, Portugal. 15th December, it's in Braço de Prata. There will be a Facebook event, so you can look for it. I'm going to talk about the Gamification World Congress and what we did at Web Summit, because we did a workshop there and the first meetup. And also there will be another gamification designer called Rui Cordeiro, and he worked at small places like Blizzard and Gamelofts and THQ, small places, you know, for 20 years. He worked over all of these companies. So he's going to talk about what he's doing right now with gamification. And we're going to have some more practical exercises. So it's just to try out different frameworks and try to understand what gamification can do. And so I want to leave you with a final mission. This girl is called Jane McGonigal, the one that I was talking to you about. And she's the one that says that humans are playing 3 billion hours a week, okay? And what she says is that in order to change the world, we need to play 21 billion hours a week, okay? Because seeing as she believes that games can change the world, she thinks that if we go from this to this, we're getting pretty close to changing the world, okay? But what we in the gamification community think is that if these guys are playing and we can bring all of that into everyday life, we can really change the world. Because it's not just games, it's everything you're getting all that power into your everyday life, and for us, it could really make everyday life really more awesome, okay? So I'm going to leave you with a mission. You can take it home, you can do whatever you want with it. And the mission is change your world with gamification, okay? Pretty simple. So it's not the world, it's just your world. So we need to find a really good problem, and it's better if it is an engagement problem. So because gamification doesn't fix a bad product, if it's a bad social network, you can't just gamify it and make it better. So it needs to be it needs to be an engagement problem. Okay? It needs to be something that you're not, if something like doing your chores that you're not, I don't feel like it, something that's not motivating you. So that's the type of problem that you need. You need to ask around and see if other people have that problem, okay, in order to get different perspectives on the problem. And then you're going to think about your favorite games, okay, and think about how they get you hooked. For me, Football Manager gets me hooked because I'm playing with my club and I'm hiring the best players and I decide the tactics, and when I win, it's my players that are winning, it's my team. For me, it's the autonomy and the decision making that's important. For you, it could be something else. So you need to find out what's your favorite games, or what are your favorite games, and need to understand what makes them special for you. Is it the strategy? Is it the action? Is it playing with other people? Okay? And then you're going to take what makes it awesome and apply it to the problem. Pretty simple, okay? So you've got everyday chores, and you're a really big fan of World of Warcraft, so Habit RPG, okay? You transform your everyday tasks into quests, and it's a mission for you suddenly. Because if you're a World of Warcraft player, it's pretty sure to bet that you're focused on the mission. You're focused on getting better and getting better equipment and getting better at solving the problems. So finally, you need to test and redesign, okay? And that's a game development cycle. You design, test, redesign. Pretty simple. Okay, that's the mission for you if you choose to accept it. It's not going to self-destruct, okay? And that's what I had to tell you, okay? Thank you very much. And if you want to ask me something down the line, you can email me, or you can ask for my contact with Manuel, okay? Thank you.
So thanks a lot, Manuel. Any questions? No? Come on, guys. Well, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
What's a day like in the life of a gamification designer?
Okay. Well, it's part being an evangelist, because we're still at the stage that we're trying to convince people that gamification is a good thing, and especially in business, because I work at Novabase, and we're a big IT consultancy firm, and we're always dealing with big clients and big customers, and most of the times I need to explain to them why they need to invest in this. And they're really risk averse, so it's not always easy to convince them. So it's part being an evangelist, and it's part being, it's really fun, okay? Because what we're doing is that we have this framework, and it's all focused on working, on hands-on work with our customers and with our users. So we're always doing workshops and designing this, and trying to use these different dynamics to try and get the customer to choose really what are the best objectives. And we're interviewing people and trying to build our player personas. And then we use this really tree-fit canvas where we design the player experience and the player journey. And we even have these cards that we use to remind ourselves of really the cards that I use on those slides. They are physical cards that we use while designing. So it's always fun to do this. It's challenging because when you design a game, and you might know this, it's not a closed thing, okay? People evolve with the game. So a lot of times you need to explain that it's not a one-off thing. You don't design and there you go, and you can use it forever and it's going to always work. It won't always work, okay? And you need to understand, and even if you interview the people and and you build these great personas, it might not always work. So you need to test it, and you go and talk with the players and trying to understand, well, why doesn't it work? Why aren't you playing? Why aren't you getting addicted to it? And you need to understand this. So you're always discovering new things. Every day is always a surprise. It's pretty fun.
So you say that the Novabase has a framework?
Yeah, we have a framework that what we did was we looked, because there are a lot of people looking into gamification for some time now, and there's a lot of different frameworks. And what we did was that we were already using design thinking for 5 years now, 5 or 6 years now. So we were really into the design thinking process. So what we needed to understand was how would we fit gamification in the design thinking process. So we created our own framework that's different parts of different frameworks. So we really wanted to make it our own, to make it tailored to how we already did our work. And it's pretty straightforward. So you define the objectives, you build the personas, you define the behaviors you want them to create, and you define the overall experience, and then you design the player journey, okay? And each player journey has the discovery stage, the onboarding stage, the scaffolding, and the end game. So for each stage, different mechanics are important. So when you're in the discovery stage, you want to get them hooked. Onboarding stage, you need them to learn the game rules. Scaffolding is where the magic happens, so everything happens in scaffolding. And end game is where they go beyond the normal experience. So if you're World of Warcraft players, the end game would be when you've beaten all the bosses, and now what you're doing is that you're a shoemaker in World of Warcraft, because they have professions now. So you have a job, and you're playing World of Warcraft, and you have a job in World of Warcraft. So you're building, you're creating swords, you're creating armors in a game. So it's beyond the gaming experience, and that's the end game stage. That's how you get him to always be playing. And that's why World of Warcraft was created in 2004, and it still has millions of players because they really worked out the end game stage. Why? Because they were always asking the people, always asking the players, what do you want? How can it be better? And they tested it, they redesigned it. They really respect the game design cycle. And I can suggest a question. Something that I get asked a lot is, what does a gamification designer need to know? So where do gamification designers come from? Are they always software developers? Are they management consultants? Are they marketing guys? So the easy answer is that they come from everywhere. So you've got gamification gurus, they are marketers, they are software developers, they are network engineers, they are psychologists. Okay, there's this guy here in Portugal, and he's the president of the Order of Portuguese Psychologists, and he's a gamification designer too. So you've got people from really different backgrounds. So basically what you need is the will to learn, and it's pretty useful if you're a gamer, because you really need to understand what's behind that. If you didn't feel the motivation, you're not going to empathize with the users. Okay? So that's about it.
Any questions? No? So thanks a lot for coming, for an awesome presentation.
Thank you.
And you're always welcome here.
Okay,
So.
thank you.